Hi, and welcome to the LM Report. I'm your host, Lima, and this is episode 1. Today's date is March 31st, 2025, and we're diving into a packed episode titled Deep State Strategies Unraveling, Elon Musk Exposes Corruption, Election Fraud Evidence Mounts. Buckle up, because we've got a lot to cover, spanning economic shifts, political maneuvers, and geopolitical developments that are reshaping the landscape both here in the United States and around the world. My goal is to break it all down for you, piece by piece, in a way that's clear, thought-provoking, and keeps you hooked from start to finish. Let's start with the big picture. For years, there's been talk of a shadowy network, often dubbed the Deep State, comprising entrenched politicians, tech moguls, media outlets, and unseen influencers pulling strings behind the scenes. Whether you buy into that label or not, what's undeniable is that the tactics associated with this group seem to be losing their grip. One playbook after another is faltering, and the public's response, or lack thereof, tells the story. Take the recent Signal Gate flap, for example. It's been hyped as a bombshell scandal involving encrypted messaging and alleged leaks. But a CBS poll released this week shows most people just aren't biting. The chatter's loud in certain circles, but on the ground, crickets. Why's that? Some argue it's because the story's too convoluted, too much noise, not enough substance. Others suggest it's a sign of fatigue. After years of non-stop controversies, folks might just be tuning out. But there's a third possibility floating around, one that's got people whispering. What if this was a setup? Picture this. Donald Trump and his allies, anticipating the move, let it play out just long enough to turn the tables. If that's the case, Signalgate could be less a scandal and more a springboard, a way to shine a spotlight on what they claim is a much bigger web of deception. Imagine the narrative shifting from a single app to a cascade of revelations: Epstein's client list, hidden financial deals, election irregularities, the Russia probe, impeachment efforts, Ukraine ties, all hitting the public square at once. That's not just a storm. That's a Category 5 hurricane. Trump's approach seems to support this theory. He's not rushing in with a single knockout punch. Instead, he's building the case methodically, day by day. Every press conference, every social media post, every leaked document feels like a breadcrumb leading somewhere big. Just this week, we've seen fresh reports of government waste. Billions unaccounted for in programs that sound noble on paper but don't add up in practice. People are starting to ask the right questions. Where's the money really going? Does it vanish into thin air? Or is it landing in someone's pocket? Enter Elon Musk, who's been dropping hints that he's got answers. He's promised to peel back the curtain on what he calls kickbacks. Money siphoned off to enrich the well-connected while the rest of us foot the bill. Musk isn't stopping there. He's also stirring the pot with claims of election fraud. And this is where things get really juicy. He says he's got hard data, social security numbers issued to non-citizens, millions of them, showing a pattern that could have tipped the scales in past votes. The numbers he's citing are staggering: 270,000 in 2021, ballooning to 2.1 million in 2024. He's handing this over to the Department of Homeland Security, framing it as the tip of an iceberg. The theory? It's not just about voting machines or mail-in ballots, though those are part of the conversation, but a broader scheme involving illegal immigrants, fake identities, and a deliberate push to reshape the electorate. If even half of this holds water, it's a game changer. This ties directly into Trump's musings about a third term. He's been floating the idea not as a joke but as a serious what if. The logic goes like this: if evidence proves elections were rigged to overthrow the government, say, by flooding the system with ineligible voters, then what's the remedy? Could past results be challenged? Could the Constitution allow an exception? It's a long shot, legally speaking, and it'd spark a firestorm of debate. But it's not hard to see why he's planting the seed. He's framing it as a question of justice, not ambition. And with Musk's data in play, that question's only getting louder. Let's pivot to the border because that's another piece of this puzzle. Tom Homan, Trump's border czar, is spearheading a crackdown on gang members and violent offenders. Think Tren de Aragua and MS-13. Secretary of State Marco Rubio put out a statement detailing a joint operation with El Salvador. 17 hardcore criminals, including murderers and rapists, rounded up and shipped out. El Salvador's president even posted a video, military choppers landing, handcuffed figures marched into custody, calling it a win for both nations. These groups are now officially tagged as foreign terrorist organizations, a move that ups the stakes and signals zero tolerance. The optics here are fascinating. On one side, you've got critics, Democrats, some media outlets, saying this is overreach, a political stunt to rally the base. They point to sob stories, arguing it's inhumane to deport without nuance. On the other side, supporters cheer it as a long overdue purge of threats that festered under lax policies. The timing's key. If Trump's team is gearing up for a big reveal on corruption or election fraud, neutralizing street-level muscle like MS-13 could kneecap any attempt at chaos, riots, intimidation, you name it. Without those foot soldiers, the opposition's playbook gets thinner. Speaking of muscle, FBI Director Kash Patel is flexing some serious law enforcement chops. In just weeks, he's racked up wins that'd make any predecessor jealous. He nabbed Henry Villatoro Santos, a top MS-13 kingpin terrorizing U.S. streets. He crossed off 3 names from the FBI's top 10 most wanted list. Think high-profile fugitives who've dodged justice for years. In Lubbock, Texas, he led a raid that took down 22 members of a drug cartel, seizing enough product to flood a small city. Then there's the crypto bust. Millions laundered to Hamas, disrupted before it could fuel more violence. Oh, and don't forget the Tesla vandals, caught red-handed after torching showrooms. Compare that to the FBI's old priorities. Chasing down parents at school board meetings, spinning January 6th into a sprawling conspiracy, maybe even dabbling in political theater. Patel's pivot is night and day, and it's got people asking, what were they doing before? Were they too busy with optics to tackle the real bad guys? The contrast is stark, and it's winning Patel fans, though his critics say he's just playing to Trump's tune. Now let's talk Epstein, a name that keeps resurfacing like a bad penny. Attorney General Pam Bondi and Patel are poring over the infamous client list, redacting victims' identities to shield them from the spotlight. It's a meticulous process, but it's hit a snag with Virginia Roberts, one of Epstein's most public survivors. She posted online that she's in kidney failure, with days to live, after a freak accident involving a school bus. The timing's eerie. Right as the list nears release, a key witness might be silenced. Was it just a tragic fluke? Or something orchestrated? No proof either way, but the coincidence is raising hackles. If she can't speak, it's one less voice to confirm the horrors tied to those names. The media's feeling the heat too. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt is shaking up the briefing room, threatening to boot legacy outlets like CNN and NBC from their front row perch. Instead, she's rolling out Podcast Row, a platform for political podcasters to grill officials directly. It's a power play, sidelining the old guard and amplifying voices that thrived on platforms like X and Rumble. The backlash? Swift and ugly. Influencers like Joe Pags, Juanita Broaddrick, Owen Schroyer, and Benny Johnson have been swatted. Fake emergency calls sending SWAT teams to their doors. It's a scare tactic, but these folks aren't blinking. They've faced worse, and they're not about to back down now. Tesla's in the crosshairs too, literally. Showrooms burned, cars torched, windows smashed. In Arizona, a 61-year-old woman driving her Tesla was boxed in by a green Chevrolet, then punched by the driver. Tesla's cameras caught it all, and the guy's facing jail time. She's adamant it wasn't political. She just liked the car. But the pattern's hard to ignore. Musk calls it terrorism, linking it to his push against corruption and illegal payouts. The public's fed up. Social media's buzzing with disbelief that a car choice could trigger violence. It's a microcosm of the broader divide, rationality versus rage. Back to Musk's election bombshell. Antonio Gracias, a key ally, laid it out. They were chasing Social Security fraud and stumbled onto voter fraud. The numbers doubled yearly: 270,000 non-citizen SSNs in 2021, 2.1 million in 2024. He's an immigrant himself, insisting this isn't partisan, it's about integrity. Musk doubles down, saying it was a Biden-era plot to import voters and lock in a one-party state. Human traffickers raked in billions, he claims, while the American electorate was diluted. Evidence is with DHS now, and if it sticks, heads will roll. Musk's blunt, someone needs to go to jail for this. Who? That's the million-dollar question. Musk's Doge team is also sniffing out congressional cash. How do lawmakers on $200,000 salaries end up with $20 million net worths? They're following the money: USAID grants, pop-up NGOs, shell companies, and promising to name names. Rasmussen polls show 65% of voters back slashing waste, with 83% of Republicans and 68% of independents on board. Midterms are looming. If the faucet shuts off, watch incumbents, Dems and rhinos alike, scramble or bow out. The gravy train's derailing, and the public's ready to see who's been riding it. Globally, the pattern repeats. France just slapped Marine Le Pen with a 4-year sentence, barring her from 2027's election despite her poll lead. Brazil, Romania, Moldova, Germany all seeing opposition leaders banned or hobbled. Italy's deputy PM calls it a war from Brussels. Musk sees a leftist playbook: lose the vote, weaponize the courts. Meanwhile, Germany's mulling conscription over Russia, and the New York Times dropped a bombshell: U.S. boots and CIA drones in Ukraine targeting Russia. Trump could use this to pull back, reset policy, and dodge the prior admin's mess. At home, Trump's remaking D.C. Black Lives Matter murals erased, Floyd statues toppled. Bondi axed a lawsuit against Georgia's election law. And Wisconsin's a battleground. Trump's pushing Brad Schimmel for Supreme Court and a voter ID referendum. Against Iran, he's hammering Houthi terrorists, hinting at bigger moves. A 2018 post: Iran next looms, with the Muslim Brotherhood in his sights. Could it all loop back to Obama-era scandals? The narrative's building, and when it breaks, it'll be seismic. That's all for today's deep dive. Thanks for sticking with me through this journey. It's a lot to process, but it's worth staying informed. If you found this episode eye-opening or thought-provoking, please consider subscribing to the LM Report channel. We're here to keep you in the loop, breaking down the headlines and connecting the dots every step of the way. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join our growing community. We've got plenty more coming your way. Stay sharp, stay safe, and be ready for what's next. Until then, take care.